Hello, welcome to Interdependent Study, our podcast where we engage in the learning and unlearning work for collective liberation. I'm Aaron.
And I'm Damien. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, we are at the end of the year.
Yes.
So today we've got a special episode where we're going to reflect on the year we've spent doing this podcast.
Yeah.
We're going to talk a little bit about some of our top moments and highlights we've had throughout the year, like our previous year in review episodes. These highlights can be based on something meaningful we read or watched or a moment on the podcast itself, either in front of the mic or behind the scenes.
Absolutely. So we have each separately prepared a list of 5 moments that stood out to us individually from this past year so we could come here to the table and discuss them together. And we have not shared with each other what we are going to talk about. So there may be some overlap, but this continues to be a really great way to reflect on all of the work we've put in this year and all that we've learned. And so I'm excited.
Yes, me too. I'm so excited for this. This is always such a great way to revisit what we've learned this year, what we've discussed on the podcast, and all the work we put into making this thing go every week and get published each Wednesday. And to give us a little bit of time to brag on ourselves about our amazing year. So before we get into it, I actually have a few numbers for us that I looked at behind the scenes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, did some number crunching. Thank you to our spreadsheets.
Yes.
So I have got a few stats. So by the end of this episode, we're going to have about 21 hours of podcast episodes for the year.
Wow.
So that's an average of 25 minutes per episode.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
21
hours. So 21 hours of listening time for Interdependent Study this year. We have read 11 books this year, which is incredible.
Yes.
We've mentioned that before, but always want to shout that out. Also, we've read articles only from movement media. All of our articles this year were from publications like Hammer and Hope.
Yep.
We read 6 articles from them. 6 articles from In These Times. 4 articles from Inquest. 3 publications from Interrupting Criminalization. And we also read from Prism, Scallywag, Waging Nonviolence, and The Forge.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
So good stuff. And then we also watched some documentaries and did some other stuff. But that's my very brief stats I wanted to bring to the conversation. So let's get into it.
Okay.
So how about you go first with your number 5?
Yeah.
And we'll trade back and forth from there.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
Yes.
And before we get started, yet again, let's open our celebratory beers.
Let's do it. Cheers, man.
Cheers.
Here we go. Take a sip. Oh, man. All right. So I'm going first, and it's actually kind of fitting. I had no idea you were going to do those numbers, the stats. It's a nice segue.
You're welcome.
To my highlight number 5. And in a word, my number 5 is consistency.
Consistency, okay.
So I'm really proud of us for a lot of reasons when it comes to this podcast, obviously. But this year in particular, I'm proud of our consistency. And I've got 2 things to highlight about that. So first, we released 50 episodes this year. 50. And I went back and I looked. One of them was a solo episode that you did way back in February where you read Toni Morrison's incredible essay, Racism and Fascism, to honor the 30-year anniversary of that phenomenal piece. So I want to name that. But 50 episodes in a year, I think is pretty amazing. It is, and I checked my notes here, the most episodes we've released in a calendar year. Since we started this podcast. Usually we've taken at least 3 or 4 weeks off. So to only miss 2 weeks is pretty phenomenal. And I'm just really proud of the work that we've put in to make that happen. Life at times, and it did this year. Work can work at times, and it did. But this podcast, I think for both of us, is a really constant, consistent, important thing and for both of us, and we made it happen. And so that's number 1. The second thing I'll highlight in terms of our consistency, and you beat me to the punch here, we read a whopping 11 books this year.
We sure did.
Which, we talked about this a few weeks ago in some car ride, and I mentioned this when we read the book Friends in Common on the show. But I think it's amazing that we read and talked about 11 books this year. And I'm especially proud of us for continuing to make reading 1 book a month a priority and something that we do, a staple on the podcast, if you will. And it's pretty awesome to also be able to say, and not that I couldn't have said this other years, but I loved every single one of the books we read this year. I loved them. And maybe I'll have more to say about that later. Sure. But I just applaud our consistency this year, and I'm really proud of us for it. And it's definitely a highlight for me.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
See, I like that as a theme.
Yeah.
All right. Well, my number 5 is one of the books. It's Theory of Water.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Well.
Again, I want to give a shout out to all the books we read this year. As you said,
yes,
I loved them all. They were all really great in their own way, and they all taught us something unique.
Yes.
And this isn't my last mention of books in my top moments for the podcast this year either, but number 5 is Theory of Water. This book, I think, taught us so much and connected so many ideas about collective liberation to the natural world around us. Centering is one of the concepts that sticks out to me.
Yep.
So Leanne Betsemise-Simpson says, centering is bonding. It's building coalitions with your neighbors. And it's such a powerful concept to think about how snow forms bonds with other snow to create something new.
Yes.
And thinking about the way that we as individuals can bond with our neighbors, with our friends, with our family to create something new, something bigger than the sum of its parts. So one beautiful concept there. And then, of course, Nebe, which is the Anishinaabe word for water.
Right.
And Leanne says, quote, Nebe teaches us that our thinking is the most powerful when it can connect the intimate to the global and move between scales effortlessly.
Yes.
Nebe, water, is iterative, resilient, and transformative as it carves out spaces from rock over thousands of years. And water, Nebe, is interdependent and decentralized, a vessel for multitudes of land and water-based species and communities. It's beautiful.
Yes.
And so, I love this book, and I think it has so many practical applications for organizing, for collective liberation, for understanding the world around us more effectively,
right?
And how we can work together more cohesively with one another and also the natural world.
I should have known that you would make Theory of Water one of your top ones. It was my number 1.
Oh, well then.
It was my number 1. I'll say, I'll do this when we get to number 1 for real. I had some honorable mentions, so I'll save those. But yeah, I have to give it to Theory of Water. It was simply a beautiful book. To say that is really feels like an understatement.
Yeah, absolutely.
The lessons that Leanne shared in it about the importance and utility and power of being grounded and connected to water and to the earth and to each other.
Yeah.
Still resonate with me, and I feel like there are lessons in that book that I'm going to carry with me forever.
Yeah.
And how we dream and work towards a world that is refusing capitalism and dispossession and violence and all of the systems that hurt us every single day, individually and collectively, is a huge takeaway from that book. And I also, in my sort of thinking about it, the centering concept is just one that, again, I'm going to take with me forever. This idea of it being a joining, a communal transformation, strength building, bonding, as you talked about, like all of those things and the power of that in terms of our work and our fight was really profound. So Theory of Water was my top highlight of the year. So well done. I like that. Yes.
Yeah, I think, that book, I think also does so much for the kind of mental decolonization that folks need to do.
Yeah.
And I think that it contributes a lot to that.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so where are we now?
It's your turn to
My
talk about
number 4. Yeah. All right. So there are times where this podcast of ours is right on time for me. It actually happens quite a bit, but one episode, as I was reflecting on all of them, really fit the bill here. And that was episode number 186, way back on January 29th.
Okay.
Which we titled Carry Dr. King's Torch. And in that episode, we read a piece by Nicholas Powers in Truth Out called MLK's Legacy is One of Class Struggle. To fight Trump, we must carry his torch. And that episode stands out to me because the inauguration of Trump taking place on the holiday that we celebrate and honor Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was really tough for me, and I know it was for a lot of us. I felt so wrong for so many reasons, obvious reasons. But to be able to be in this space with you, being able to process all of that, having this truth out piece as sort of an avenue to be able to do that was really cathartic in a lot of ways. And so that's one reason why that episode is a highlight for me. It gave me space both on and off mic, because we talked about this. We talked a lot about that outside of the mic, or off the mic, I should say. But the other reason why that episode was a highlight for me was because of the article itself, obviously. Yeah. One of the things Nicholas Powers talked about was the concept of opposing visions, which I talked a lot about in application. And I just remember that concept and the entire piece really helping me make sense of what was happening and helped me make clear which vision is on the right side of history and where we need to be. And so that episode was just a highlight for me for those reasons and more.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh. This is why I love this episode, because I remember that episode, but I don't remember a lot about it because it was a long time ago.
It's January.
40-something episodes ago.
Yes.
There's been a lot of things that we've talked about.
Absolutely.
But I remember that article and that feeling in that moment.
Yep.
All right. Well, my number 4 is, I just titled Advanced Reader Copies because, we read more advanced reader copies of books this year.
Yes.
And this wasn't our first one of that. Our first was, I think, White Property, Black Trespass by Andrew Crinks, which we read last year. But it was great to get to read 3 books ahead of publication and time our episodes to coincide somewhat with the publication of the books in support of spreading the word for these books.
Yes.
And so thanks to Haymarket, Beacon Press, and AK Press for sending us copies of books to read and review right here on our little podcast. So shout out to them. And just to share the books, we read Teach Truth by Jesse Hagopian, Radical Unlearning by Lewis Raven Wallace, and Read This When Things Fall Apart, which was edited by Kelly Hayes. And they were all fantastic.
Yes.
Teach Truth gives us powerful stories of educators resisting the crackdown on real education that actually criticizes the U.S. or gives room for criticism of the United States and the violent history that it is.
Yep.
Radical Unlearning weaves together the different ways that people unlearn deeply held beliefs like white supremacy or transphobia or homophobia. And Read This When Things Fall Apart. As we said during our episode for this book last month, we could do a bunch of episodes based on the letters included in this book. So just so many topics covered, so many ways for people to learn how to engage in organizing work wherever they might fit in that. And so many practical lessons from that book. So, advanced reader copies, those 3 books, I sort of bundled them together as a theme.
Yeah.
Because it is those individual books, but it's also just sort of being part of the release of them in some small way.
It's really special.
I think, it felt really cool. Like it felt in some ways like legitimizing us as a little publication here of our own.
Well, that, sir, was my honorable mention.
Okay.
Because, I got to writing my number 1, Theory of Water, and I was like, I have so many more than 5 highlights to share. And I feel like this happens every year. And I'm not going to spoil what I'm going to talk about later, but the idea of the advanced copies was the honorable mention. And so, Jesse's book, Teach Truth, kicking off our year, actually, right? Yep. We read that in January. It was just an awesome book. And shout out to Jesse for being so dope in sharing our podcast episode with his followers.
Yep.
And I know we both felt really connected to that book as educators. And then as you said, Radical Unlearning by Lewis Raven Wallace in October. And Read This When Things Fall Apart by Kelly Hayes. Those books stand out to me for so many reasons. But again, as you said, many thanks to Haymarket and Beacon and AK Press for sharing the books with us and believing in us. And thank you to Jesse and Lewis and Kelly for writing these books and for sharing them with us because they were beautiful. And so, that was an honorable mention for me.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Well, it's back to you, I think, for number 3.
Back to number 3. Okay. So actually, we're right at my spoiling point. So I talked about our consistency and the fact that we read 11 books this year. And Aaron, I felt like I couldn't have a list of highlights without specifically talking about all of the books that we read this year.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm not going to talk about all of them.
You're going to talk about all 11 books?
I'm not going to talk about all of them. But they were all, as I said, really, really great this year. Right. Mm-hmm. And so as a few highlights, we read The Black Anti-Fascist Tradition, Fighting Back from Anti-Lynching to Abolition by Janelle K. Hope and Bill V. Mullen in March. And I was really struck by how thorough that book was and how much there is to learn about how fascism has been such a threat to Black people and our existence in the world, and certainly to all people, honestly. And it just opened my eyes to the tradition and the power of Black anti-fascism as a way forward. And so I really loved that book. We read Abolition, Politics, Practices, Promises, Volume 1 by Dr. Angela Davis in April. And I feel like I don't have to say much more other than Dr. Angela Davis to bring that one home. We read Perfect Victims and the Politics of Appeal by Muhammad Al-Kurd in May. And I was so moved by that book, given the ongoing genocide taking place in Palestine. I looked back at my notes and read and listened to part of our episode. And one of the things Muhammad said that I remember highlighting and bolding and starring and being like, I have to talk about this, was what he talked about, what it meant to be a Palestinian. So he said, quote, "We are not human automatically by virtue of being human. We are to be humanized by virtue of our proximity to innocence, whiteness, civility, wealth, compromise, collaboration, non-alignment, non-violence, helplessness, futurelessness. This lethal exercise in tightroping is meant to prevent us from falling back into the ring of the condemned." Yeah. And that quote and just the entire book really just reinforced the fact that the humanity of the Palestinian people deserves more than it has ever been given. And so that book was just a gem in a lot of ways. Yep. We read Reconsidering Reparations by our friend Olufemi Taiwo in June, and that book was so good we took 2 episodes to talk about it. So that's had to be a highlight for me. And then last but not least, we read The New Racial Regime by Alana Linton in August. And what I'll say about that book, outside of it just being incredible, is that we learned from our Spotify Wrap that it was our most listened to episode of the year on that platform, right? Which, you know, despite the Spotify of it all, boo Spotify, that's just kind of amazing. And a special shout out to Alana for sharing that episode and that accomplishment, if you will, with her followers. Yeah. So my third highlight really is just this idea of all of the books we read this year. Just incredible.
Yeah, and I want to give a special shout out to Alana Linton too, because she commented back on our Instagram story that I posted yesterday as we're recording this to ask people what their highlights were. And
nice.
So she said her highlight was us talking about the new racial regime.
Oh, so that's incredible.
Thanks to Alana for responding to
yes
our Instagram story and sharing that highlight with us.
Yes, that's awesome. So, thank you.
All right, so my turn for number 3.
Correct.
We're still number 3. Okay. My number 3 is Eyes on the Prize 3.
Oh, okay.
Which I had to put at number 3 because it's number 3.
Yes. Yeah.
So every minute of this documentary series is so good. The detail, the depth of the storytelling of movement work from the 80s to about 2015 is excellent. Yep. And it tells the stories that I think have gotten lost over the course of the years. They're not stories that are highlighted in the same way or revered in the same way as the work that happened in the 60s.
Yes.
And there's connections between health, economics, environment, movement organizing, and shows how much each parts of movement is connected and supported by the others.
Right.
And so there's so much great storytelling from the interviewees and found footage that they have that's archival, and great guests featured across all 5 episodes of the series. I think it's a must watch for anybody and everybody to understand movement work and what's been happening, particularly with like Black liberation struggle over the course of the last 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
Just a must watch, and so grateful that we took the time to watch every episode and dedicate an episode to each episode.
Yes. So well deserved. And I love your point about they're the sort of lesser known stories, if you will, or the ones that aren't always out front and center when you think about Black liberation and Black history. And yeah, I so enjoyed that documentary. It was so well done, and such care was given to every single episode. So yeah, that's a highlight for me too. Very good. I love that. All right, so it's my number 2. All right, so for my number 2, I'm going to highlight another specific episode from the year, and that was episode number 227 on November 26th.
Yep.
called Alabama's Depraved Prisons.
Yes, that's also my number 2.
Look at that. Yeah. And that episode was special for one pretty obvious reason. We had our very first ever guest on the show. Mm-hmm. We cannot thank Dakari Lariat enough for reaching out, for wanting to join us on our podcast, and for suggesting that we talk about the documentary, The Alabama Solution, which was a film that had actually caught both of our eyes, and I'm sure we would have talked about that documentary on the podcast. In fact, I'm certain of it. Mm-hmm. But to be able to do it with Dakari, who is so passionate about the issue of justice and the prison system writ large, and especially in the state of Alabama as he's running for the state Senate seat, was just...
U.S. Senate seat,
representing Alabama, was just mind-blowingly amazing and cool. Having guests on our podcast is something we've always wanted to incorporate into this. Mm-hmm. And I hope it's okay to share this. I think we both thought our first guest would be someone we knew.
Probably, yeah, that is. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it happened in this way, and it could not have gone better. And I have to give you a special shout out for your work behind the scenes to not only be the person corresponding with Dakari back and forth with him to make it all happen, but for also making sure all of our tech worked and it happened. And so thank you for that. And despite the heaviness of the documentary and what's currently happening inside of Alabama's prisons, that show in particular will be not just a highlight for this year, will be a forever highlight for me for our podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. I think... Let me see what I want to say that you haven't already said.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to think about the documentary in particular, it's phenomenal. And there's so much emphasis on the stories of the folks who are actually incarcerated.
Yes.
And who are doing amazing organizing work in their individual prisons, but also across the whole system.
Yeah.
To shut down all of the prisons.
Right.
On strike for
weeks.
Yeah, weeks.
Yeah.
And that's incredible.
Yes.
And so I know we gave them a shout out for that work because it's hard enough to try to coordinate something like that with people who don't have restrictions on communication.
Absolutely.
And have guards breathing down their neck.
Yes, and are free to move around. Yeah.
Right. It's hard enough to do that with those folks, and trying to do it. Yeah, that's just incredible. And so that's one element. And then, when I think about prison reform as a concept and people talking about reforming prisons, I think I want them to watch this.
Yes.
Because I think it's pretty clear that these horrendous conditions are baked into the prison system itself.
Yes.
And so, when you see what they're facing each day, I think you see that, well, this is what it's evolved into.
Right.
And so what did it start from to get to here? It was rotten from the beginning.
Yes.
And so we can't reform this. It's got to be complete overhaul into abolition. And so I think that's one piece of just the documentary itself was so powerful. And then, as you said, having Dakari Lariat come and talk with us about it was amazing. And as you said, it went really well.
Yes.
He fit right into our flow and
Yep.
and I think cleared the path for more guests for the future.
Absolutely.
too.
Absolutely.
So-
I love that. And
Yeah.
I love the shout out to the actual content of the documentary and what we learned from it. And abolition, full stop. I think I probably said that in the episode. Abolition, full stop. Yes. Very good. All right. Well, you've got all of mine. Because Theory of Water was my number one. So, and I already talked about my honorable mentions being our advanced copies of the 3 books that we got this year.
That's true.
So,
Okay.
you're up again with your number one.
All right. Well, my number one is sort of milestones is
Okay.
what I called it. So we hit 200 episodes this year.
Yes.
And then blazed right on past it to hit 232.
Yes.
And I need to amend my statement from last week. I think at some point I said that last week was our 50th episode.
Yes.
I was wrong. I don't know what I did, but this is our 50th episode of the year. And that's a huge accomplishment. And you already talked a little bit about this, but this is an extracurricular activity, so to speak, for us in the midst of busy lives that we have of taking care of the people that we love and have and work and do work with. So, I think that having 50 episodes in a year is an incredible accomplishment. And so just patting ourselves on the back for that, I guess. We also hit over 10,000 plays all time in the last few weeks, which is another great milestone.
You saved that stat. I see.
Did.
That was good.
And this doesn't include folks who quote unquote watch on YouTube. I say quote unquote watch because there's no video. It's just a still image of our podcast promotion faces on it.
Yep.
But those stats are harder to track. But there are many more views on things on YouTube that I could do the work to combine them, but I didn't have time to do all that.
Yeah.
So we hit over 10,000 plays on all the official podcast apps a few weeks ago. So another big highlight and milestone for the year was sort of just continuing to do the work and accumulating more and more accomplishments and milestones as we go.
Yeah, it's amazing as I think about and reflect on what you just said. It makes me excited for what's to come, right? This is, as I said earlier, important to us. We've made time and space for it, and the work is paying off in lots of ways. And it makes me excited about the future. I know we've got dreams and ways that we want to continue to do this podcast and evolve it and grow. And I think there's some opportunities for that forthcoming. But yeah, it's just so cool being able to do this. I think I say this every year. Like, I love doing this. I love doing it with you. And to hear those stats is really kind of validating in a lot of ways. That the hard work matters and is paying off and people are listening to us. And we're so grateful for that. Yeah. So thank you for joining us and for listening in that way. But yeah, I love that. So what I said, consistency, and you talked about milestones. What a good way to bookend that.
Yeah. And I did ask, so I posted on our Instagram story what highlights people shared. I also posted on YouTube and wanted to share what it had to be said next shared with us. So they said organizing for solidarity and everything was their highlight from our podcast this year. So just wanted to shout them out and thank them for responding as well.
Absolutely.
And share what they had to say.
Yeah, I love that. Well, that is our year in review. What a year 2025 has been for Interdependent Study. So cheers to you, my friend. Thank you for everything. And I'm excited to keep it going in 2026.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So, well, with that, we want to thank you for joining us today for the last time in 2025. You know what I'm going to ask you to do. But in case you forgot, please follow, leave a rating or review, share our podcast with the people in your life. Follow us on social media, including Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. Check us out on YouTube and sign up and join us on Patreon to get notified about any new things we've got going on behind the scenes.
Yes, thank you for listening. And thank you, Aaron, for another great year of Interdependent Study. Thank you all for listening. And remember, it's not about us, but it is about all of us. And we'll talk to you next year.